Are we ready? Everybody ready? Start the meeting? Okay, good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Lodi Zoning Board, January 23rd, and it's 7:14. Call to order.
Here.
He's not here.
Oh, Gilson's excused. Yes.
Yeah, here.
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 Also present is John Porter-Kenny, Pete Scambiata, and from Megally Engineering, Daniel Lee, and Gary Paparosi is absent.
Right. Also, Frank Paparosi will be voting for Mr. Gilson. He's out sick. Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, notice was given to the Bergen Record newspaper, and it's advertised also in the zoning office for the open public meeting law. Approval of minutes for December 19th. Everybody read the minutes. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Dominic.
Second.
Second.
Look at it.
By who?
I'll take it. Second.
By Patty Estevez. Second.
Stain,
Yes.
Estes,
Yes.
Eagle,
Yes.
Bustafano,
Yes.
Jefferson,
Yes.
Bernice,
Yes.
Paparosi,
Abstain.
Seaver.
Yes.
Okay. Application 101-119Z, the Walenta Karting, 10 Del Glen Avenue. They're here basically they want to be allowed to have dumpsters in the rear of the building. Okay, Mr. You want to?
Council, before we start, let's take care of the exhibits, okay? The application will be A1. The notice to property owners will be A2. Notice of publication A3. Proof of service to the newspaper A4. Certification of the construction official A5. Certification of the tax collector A6. Certification of the tax assessor, that's a list of the property owners, A7. Proof of publication A8. The green cards A9. The location survey A10. The the conception plan A11, and Mr. Paparosi's letter A12. Okay?
Okay.
Good evening, Robert Shooting from McLaughlin Nardi on behalf of Walenta Karting Inc. We have filed this application before you tonight for both
Is the mic on? Just tap it. You'll. No. Yeah, there you go.
Good evening, Robert Shooting. You hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Robert Shooting from McLaughlin Nardi on behalf of Walenta Karting Inc. We have filed the present application for use variance and parking variance for the property 10 Del Glen Road in Lodi. It will be used to store 22 roll-off containers that are owned by Walenta Karting Inc. That will be stored there, empty and clean before they arrive at the property. I have tonight with me to testify the manager for Walenta Karting, as well as Nick Raviano, our planner, and the property owner for 10 Del Glen Road as well.
Mm-hmm.
If I could start with the manager for Walenta Karting with regards to testimony as to the use for the property, Mr. Michael London.
Okay, we just need to swear him in.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give the truth, whole truth, nothing but the
Put your
truth?
right hand up.
So, you got it.
I do.
Thank you. And you state your name and spell it, please.
What's that, John?
State your name and spell it, please.
Yes, Michael Walenta, Michael, Walenta, Wilenta.
Thank you.
Should I talk to the mic when I'm questioning?
Sure, yeah, just put the mic between you so both of you, we can hear both of you.
Okay, Mr. Walenta, what is the need for the application that we have tonight? So currently, we have roll-off containers on another piece of property. We need to get them off because they will be using the space for another use. They're going to actually be developing it. So we are going to be putting these containers there. It's just excess equipment. It's not in use right now. We have extra containers, whether it be an open-top roll-off container or compactor. So it'll be purely storage. These containers are on the current site clean. There's no debris in them. And they'll be transported to the new property if approved, same way, just clean, not used, no debris. And how many containers, if approved, would you place onto the property? 22. And what type of containers are they? So open-top roll-off containers, 10, 20, 30-yard containers, as well as some compactors, 35-yard self-contained compactors. And how would you transport these containers to the property? With a roll-up truck. And how long would you expect that to take to deliver all 22 containers? 2 days tops. And would these containers be stored there permanently for a period of time, as long as we're able to? Yeah. Will you ever need to take these containers off the property? So the containers, like I mentioned, they're not in use. We may need to take one if one of the other containers needs a repair. We may use one of those. We don't intend to use them on a regular basis. If I did need to get on the property, it may be once, twice a month tops. And would you be willing to put conditions on when you would be able to access the property to store or take one container off the property? Yes, since these containers are not needed regularly, I'd be willing to put some sort of limitation on when I can access the property, whether it's between 9 and 12, 9 and 1, whatever you see fit. Do you have anything further to add to the board? We don't plan on inconveniencing anyone at the facility itself, on the property, or any of the neighboring homes or businesses. It's purely just storage for these empty containers that are not in use. That's why, definitely okay with putting some sort of limitations on the hours that I can get on the property. Be a roll-off truck going to get the container. That's about it. Besides putting the containers on the property, we really don't have other need to be done. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
All right, let's see if anybody from the board have any questions for Mr. Walenta? Any questions for Mr. Walenta?
Yes.
Mr. Beagle?
Could you give me, for instance, what was in those containers?
Yeah, construction demolition material. Could have been sheetrock, wood, concrete, anything. We work with contractors, developers, homeowners. They may do a clean out of their house, a homeowner. Maybe a contractor doing an addition, remodel of some sort. That's it. We don't haul any hazardous material. We are not permitted to. So it's just purely construction demolition materials.
That you know.
Yes, yeah, and the facilities that we take the material to, they're transfer stations. We have to dump on a tipping floor. They have people on the site looking through the loads because they have to certify too on their end that there are no hazardous materials being dumped at their facility. They certify that on their end as well. So yeah, we cannot take any hazardous materials out.
And how do you clean these things?
They all get swept out. Sometimes they get washed if need be on our site in Sea Focus, where our facility is. But that's about it.
Okay.
The container itself 10, 20, or 30 yard. They're all the same length. It's just a difference in height.
So a 20 and a 30-yard container are the same length, the difference in height. A 10-yard container is, so a 20 and a 30-yard container are 22 feet long. A 10-yard container is 12 foot long.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Paparocci?
No food in the compactors?
No food in the compactors.
Okay, no
No,
food.
this is all for Valenta carting, so no food materials in these compactors.
Okay, and then there was a question, they were going to stack the containers. Is that still in play, stacking
No,
containers?
it'll just be placed on the ground.
On the ground, no
wheels.
stacking of
There will be
containers.
no stacking.
And there's 22, you're looking, 22?
22, yes.
22 containers.
Yeah.
What's the reason you're going to have compactors there if you're not going to do anything with the material? It's not going to be in the containers. Why are the compactors there?
Because I think there's 3 total compactors. They're older compactors, over the years.
Okay.
I bought new ones, and these are kind of backup spares in case something happens to one of the new ones, whether it be a piston or something goes bad, then I would put that into use. But they're just older compactors. They're, the older ones are 25 years old. So,
But it's not that you're going to use the compactor on site.
yeah.
It's just when you need it, you take it out.
If need be, yeah, if I had to take it and put it into use,
Okay.
it's there for me. Yeah, this
Okay.
equipment is purely just excess from over the years and, backup if needed. And if
Right.
it was needed, it would then go onto my property in Secaucus and be kept there because it would be used regularly. The property in Lodi would not be for a regular use.
Right. Not unless the economy has gotten much better, then more buildings going to go on, then they're going to use more,
Absolutely.
which you hope for.
That would be great.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Lenta? Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee is the engineer.
Just to clarify, the compactors, will those be within the spaces designated for the 22 containers? Or
Yes, yeah,
okay.
so they're the same length as a 20 or 30-yard container.
All right.
It's just an enclosed, compaction unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just one question regarding, do you own the building as well on the site?
In Lodi?
Yeah,
No,
for the property in question.
no, I don't own that. Nick Angelosi
Okay.
does. Yeah.
Okay, so the operations within the building are completely separate from
Yes.
whatever it is that you're
Yeah,
looking to do?
it has nothing to do.
Okay.
I'm just utilizing the 22 spaces for excess container storage.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if I may, then, is the owner going to be testifying tonight?
Just on this testimony.
He's available for testimony.
Just on what he said.
Any questions of the board that's now?
Okay, I think I'll ask some questions for him potentially later on.
Just on this.
Where are the containers currently? What town?
They're in North Bergen.
North Bergen?
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions from the board? Mr. Paparocci?
Was there clarity on the ordinance in town to enclose containers? Would that apply here? Would that apply here, enclosing?
Yeah, our ordinance in town is if you have a dumpster, a container, you have to have it fenced in for the businesses. Now, this is storage. Do they have to supply any type of fencing?
I don't think so, but I'll have to take a look at it.
Mr. Lee, you have any information on that? If they would store containers, do they have to encompass with fencing?
I would assume that since it's more of a storage capacity and not a use type.
Yeah, my concern is, kids getting to the containers, like you have compactors, could they get in a compactor? Is it a confined space? How is,
So,
you
I have a picture. So, can I show you a picture? of
Yeah,
what
please.
I have? There's actually a grid on there's only one access point into a compactor, and
so they can't shut the door behind them or get in there? And
no, it's ratcheted and sealed, so.
that's why we put fences up. Okay.
And I have a pulley, actually, that goes
That's,
down.
evidence?
We'll make that
So
813.
material
As
in
evidence?
front of it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with how they function. I just want to know if they're stored there, if they can be
I have
accessible.
lids on them, so they wouldn't be able to get in there. Yeah.
You could pass it down, Mr. Paparocci.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
So-
Mr. Jefferson?
Yeah, the 22 is going to remain that number? It won't turn into 42 or
No.
52 or, okay.
No.
All right, cool. Thank
Oh, no, I see.
I was just saying, that's not a contained area, that whole area that, when it rains, where does the water go?
But that, so the compactor you're talking about?
Yeah, from that whole area, where does the rain runoff go?
Nothing's able to get into the compactor, though, it's completely sealed off.
I didn't say the contract, I'm saying that whole area,
Yeah,
when it rains,
yeah.
where does the water go?
If it's raining inside the container,
Not inside the container. If it rains in that area,
yeah,
the water hits the ground, and it flows somewhere.
okay.
Where is that?
I do not know. I don't
South
know the
River?
drainage on the property.
About 50 feet away, downhill?
I think Mr. Graviano might be able to be better equipped to answer that question.
Okay, I'll ask him.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Stain?
something like that. This compactor is not shown on the sketch. On the sketch, where would it be located?
My architect just put 22 container spaces. You know, it'd be one of the containers. He didn't specify, you know, specific spots for each container. It's the same dimensions as a 30 or 20-yard container, just has a different height to it. So it has the same footprint.
You realize that's a flood zone that you're in.
Okay. But I'm not going to be going back there.
It doesn't matter. You're going to have containers with.
How's it, from the river, you mean, is the flood zone?
I'm sorry, the GI didn't get me my new hearing aids yet. So
the river is essentially what would be flooding, you're saying? That's what would make it a flood zone, or?
Definitely.
I mean, there's a steep hill, there's a big hill. I mean, water would really come up.
yeah, well, we've had some nasty flooding in this town.
I think that Mr. Graviano would be better equipped to answer those questions, and I'm sure that he will address those concerns.
Okay, let's,
That would pertain to the space between them also? Who would cover that? There's, between these containers, it doesn't appear to be very much space between them.
They would be right next to each other.
They're going to be right next to each other. Then how do you get to the ones behind each other or alongside? I don't understand.
There's 2 rows, and they're not in use. So if I had to get to one in back of the other, there's only 2 rows. I would just need to move the one in front and then get to the one behind. That's it. It's very simple.
So this is strictly storage here.
This is storage there. Yes, these containers are not in use. It's purely excess equipment. That's all it is. From over the years, is that bought new equipment, put that in use, held on to the older stuff just in case.
And the truck that would use this would be like a tractor-trailer hookup?
Well, it's a roll-off truck.
A roll-off truck.
There's cable, there's hoist, you know, it backs up to the front of the box, it hooks up, it pulls it on the truck.
Okay, thank you.
okay, any more questions for Mr. Walenta? All right, if we could, Mr. Walenta, could you put an X on what the compactor, which one's the compactor in the photo? Then if you could put the photo behind you so anyone from the public would like to see what the compactor looks like?
If there's no further questions from Mr. Walenta, I would like to call Nicholas.
No, we just need to introduce the public. Anybody who wants to see the photograph, take a look, and we'll introduce the public with any questions they have. But all you could do is ask any questions pertaining to Mr. Walenta, what he spoke about. Can't ask any other questions until the end of the meeting when our questioning has ended.
Mr. Chairman, I got one more question.
Yes, Mr. Bernice?
Is there any fencing to protect this?
Right now, there's no fencing on the property.
What's to stop someone from coming in and throwing debris into those containers?
It's private property, right? But yeah, anybody, I guess, could drive on it.
Anybody could come and dump whatever they want into there without
It's
any...
private property, there's no fence. No.
Right, but that's not going to stop somebody that wants to get rid of garbage.
If it is a concern, I know that we have discussed the possibility of putting in fencing in.
I mean, it happens everywhere. And if people know there's 20 empty containers or however many, let's get rid of our stuff there.
We could put out some sort of fence.
I would think that would be a concern.
Okay, does that open the meeting to the public? Anybody have any questions for Mr. Walenta? You could just ask the questions pertaining to what he spoke to. Okay, come forward. If you could move the mic a little closer to, and just give your name.
Your name, no, just asking questions.
Yeah, just asking questions.
Not giving evidence, just asking questions.
Good evening. One question that I have is, are the containers going to be closed? The actual
Could we have your name, please, ma'am?
Oh, my name is Ashley Jackson Patterson.
Ashley?
Jackson Patterson.
Jackson Patterson?
Yes.
Could you spell your last name, Patterson?
Yes. Patterson.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Are the containers closed, the actual storage containers?
Well, that's what we were discussing just a little while ago, that they are 10, 20, 30-yard open-top containers.
Okay, because how will the standing water then be dealt with? Because I know we have issues with mosquitoes. So in the summertime, I'm worried if it rains and there's standing water there, how will that be dealt with?
There's gaps in the back door, so water can drain out. And if need be, I can put blocks under the front of the container. This way, when I place them, this way the water will drain out and nothing will be standing in the box.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
Mosquitoes.
Is there anyone else have any questions for Mr. Walenta? Come forward. Just give your name and spell it.
Daniel Noriega, 33 Delgan Avenue.
Okay, could you spell your last name, please?
Noriega.
All right. Noriega.
Yeah,
Okay.
they say, how do you say that you're going to be empty containers there?
Yes.
And how do you going to get them out of the property, into the property?
Could he ask that question now? Could he ask that question now?
Place them down in their spots. That's it. This is how they're carried with the roll-off truck.
It's going to cause a lot of problems with that street. We already have a problem with that street.
It's purely storage.
Okay. From the beginning, I'm not going to believe all what you say, because you can say now that you're going to bring empty ones, but later on you're going to bring garbage in there.
No, there's no garbage going. No, these containers are not used. I'm not bringing any trash onto the property.
So who's going to look over it? Who's going to check that?
That's what the zoning department does, the planner. They keep any complaint, they're there in a flash to look over.
They regulate if they're.
See, I got a letter here signed by all the neighbors. We already have so many problems in that street.
Well, I
You're
understand.
going to you didn't solve those problems with the trucks and everything.
Right.
And now you're adding problems to this street with trucks coming in and out.
But there,
Right.
Mr. Malenta, question? Excuse
Go
me,
ahead,
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Estevez.
Mr. Malenta, once you get these containers there, you stated earlier, how many times will you be excuse me?
Yeah.
Not,
No, like
so
I said,
approximately
I may
every
not be-
month maybe, or every
I said
couple
1
months?
to 2 times a month tops. I may
So they're not going to be
there.
going in and out with them. I just wanted to
I
make
may
that.
not need to go there for a few months.
It's just you're going to drop them there, store them, and
Yes.
not be transporting anything back and forth. So you're not going to be using Del Glen as a.
No.
Mm.
No.
But if he should get busy, he's going to be in there more often, taking out and replenishing. So that's
I have a question pertaining to that.
Mr. Paparozzi.
So, wintertime, snow removal, are you involved in that type of business? Because I see they load those containers up when there's a lot of snow and people cart the snow away.
Yeah,
If-
I don't do anything with that.
You don't do anything with that. So-
No.
So you're not gonna pull them out emergency, state of emergency,
No.
e-containers for snow removal?
I don't do any snow removal.
Yeah, the problem with those...
Okay, do you have any other questions, Mr.?
No, the problem with those containers is when it rains, the runoff is going to go to the river. It's going to contaminate the river.
Well, supposedly, he says they're going to be clean.
You going to believe that? I will. I'm right across from there.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
One other thing.
Anyone else in the public wish to have any questions, have a statement they would like to make? If not, okay, one more.
One of the things,
Joe Augusta, 4 Wussy Court.
Excuse me, you want to talk a little louder?
Yeah, Joe Augusta.
Augusta, you want to spell your last name?
Agosta.
Okay.
4 Wussy Court. So you say these are going to be excess containers, right? At your main property in Secaucus, how many roll-off containers do you have there? So what percentage of so this is almost half of your...
Yeah, but you gotta understand too, so I may have 20, 30 containers in my yard in Secaucus, but I have another 40 out at my parents. Okay, so I have all my switch boxes in Secaucus, okay, and that's what I use regularly to switch out my accounts, because I have one on site, I have one at my site. So I don't go pick up the container, bring it back, dump it, and,
So that property in Secaucus can accommodate only then 30
That's
containers.
why currently I have them on another property, these excess containers, because I don't have space for them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions from the public?
I don't have a question, I have a statement.
Okay,
Should I wait?
wait, I don't know if, no, we can't answer any statements.
Okay.
Just questions to what Mr. Willenter spoke about.
All right, well, my name is Raymond Getz, 81 Dogwan Avenue. My concern is, we heard the
All right,
same...
wait, one second. Can we get the spelling? We need the spelling of your last name.
Goetz. My concern is, we heard the same scenario from Montana Construction and Pinto. I've been in my house 39 years. We now have over 100 trucks a day on Dogwan Avenue. There's a school right up the street. It's a nightmare. The vehicles have been smashed numerous times. My truck 3 times, my tenants twice, and we're trying to get the street made a one-way. I was at the council meeting the other night for an hour. So, I mean, you're saying right now, once or twice a month? In 6 months, you could be there 10 times a week.
The Montana operates their operation right there on that site. I don't. I'm in Secaucus. It doesn't make economical sense for me to be running back and forth from Lodi to Secaucus to grab containers. This is purely excess for me. I'm willing to put limitations on the hours I can get into the property. I don't want to have to go to the Lodi property any more than I may need to. Okay? It just doesn't make sense for me. This is equipment that is just purely backup and excess in case I ever need it.
We also have the same issue with Pinto, who stores containers.
Yeah, he was there, right.
And every time there's runoff and they go down the street, taking the container, stuff's all over the street. Oil, whatever. I've been in construction 47 years. There's no way you get unless it's steamed, there's no way a container is spotless. Sorry.
Right.
Utilizing those containers regularly. So yeah, when they pick those up and they travel with them after rain, yeah, there's runoff from those. These are not in use. They've been clean. They've been on the site now for 2 years. And they're clean. They haven't been in use. Again, if anyone who wants to see them is more than welcome to.
Well, my issue is the truck traffic.
What type of damage have you seen with your vehicles that you're saying? What's transpired?
The problem is, Dogwan Avenue, as you know, right now is a two-way street.
Right.
There's parking on both sides.
Right.
You cannot have parking on both sides and have trucks go one way and the other way. They sideswiped my truck 3 times, ripped the mirrors off, everything. My neighbors have all been hit. It's ridiculous. I mean, we're at a council meeting for 2 years now. We finally got resident parking on one side. Now we're trying to get the street in one way, and it seems like the council's going to go that way. But the truck traffic is horrendous.
Well, I noticed driving down that street myself, if I'm driving down with a car and there's cars parked, you have to stop just for
It's
auto.
insane. It's insane. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, just state your name and spell your last name, please.
Tommy Patterson.
Okay.
Patterson.
Okay.
I got a question about, you said you were storing these containers somewhere else right now?
Yeah, right now there's
Okay, and those are the same containers that's coming to Lodi?
correct.
Is there any specific reason you're moving
Yeah, I
them?
had mentioned that they need the space that they're currently on, and we're developing it, so I need to move them off so they can utilize that area for different use.
Thank you. Anyone else, the public wish to speak? If not, we'll close it. And we'll hear your next witness. Thank you, Mr. Walenta.
The next witness I'd like to call is our planner, Nicholas Graviano.
Okay. Good evening.
Raise your hand. You swear a testimony about to give the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
You state your name and spell it, please.
My name is Nicholas with an H, Graviano, G-R-A, V as in Victor, I-A-N-O.
One more time.
G-R-A, V as in Victor, I-A-N-O.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Graviano, after reviewing the application and the supporting documents, what is your assessment of the application?
Do you want to swear me in?
Sorry?
Do you want to swear me in?
I just did.
Oh, you did?
Okay. I did.
All right, didn't hear that.
You were here, right?
Yeah, I don't know, was I? All right, just a quick, I'd like to give the board my credentials.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a planner and partner with Graviano and Gillis, architects and planners with the business address of 101 Crawford's Corner Road in Holmdel, New Jersey. I hold a bachelor's degree in geography and urban studies from Rutgers University, a master's degree in city and regional planning from Rutgers University.
Okay, that's sufficient.
And my license is presently current.
Okay.
Okay, so you have an application before you this evening by Walenta Cardig on Block 69, Lot 1.25. This is located in the CPD zone. That is a redevelopment area. This does not allow the storage of outdoor containers. That's why the applicant is here before you requesting this D1 or use variance. As you heard through extensive testimony by Mr. Walenta, the applicant is seeking to utilize a portion of the existing parking area of the current industrial facility for the storage of roll-off containers. The applicant indicated, as well as the plan submitted by Mr. Mara, that there will be 22 storage containers stored on site. With respect to the use variance that the applicant is requesting before you this evening, all the time away from your family and friends and doing other fun things has taught you that use variances can be granted in particular cases and for special reasons. And then special reasons are demonstrated when a site is particularly suited for the very use that's proposed. Now, when the applicant tries to prove to you with respect to the particular suitability, the applicant does not need to prove that there are other viable locations within the community for this use. Just that this site itself has characteristics that lends itself to be appropriate for the very use for which the applicant is proposing. That is called the positive criteria. With respect to the negative criteria, the applicant has to demonstrate that the use can be done without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. With respect to the term particular suitability, as you see on the board and on your materials before you, the applicant is locating these containers in the extreme rear portion of the site. So this is a portion of the site that's approximately 450 feet away from the residential neighbors that are across the street from the industrial building. So the building itself serves as a buffer from these neighbors, as well as the sheer distance that these containers will be stored at. It's quite a considerable amount of space that they will be away from these residential neighbors, and the building itself provides a man-made buffer between them and the proposed storage of the containers. Additionally, that rear of the site, as you well know, you're in the community more than I am, that part of the site is fully surrounded by other industrial and commercial uses, as well as the vegetation that's along the river. So this is a site where these proposed storage of these containers will be shielded from public view. They will not be visible from the vast majority of the public. So this is a very appropriate location for the storage of these containers. Moving on to other elements of the positive criteria that the applicant must demonstrate. The applicant must advance purposes of zoning that are in New Jersey's municipal land use law. With this respect to this application, this project helps advance Purpose A, municipal action to guide the appropriate use of lands that promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare, providing space for a responsible business that provides waste management services is certainly within the realm of advancing the public health, safety, and general welfare. And additionally, this proposal helps advance Purpose G of the MLUL, sufficient space for appropriate location of commercial uses to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. And I just touched on before with my discussion of particular suitability why this is an appropriate location for the use that the applicant is proposing. The borough's master plan 2010 reexamination indicates a desire to improve productivity of non-residential lands without creating the needs for services and impact on surrounding neighborhoods. You heard the applicant's extreme limited use of this site. It will be on a very limited basis. The applicant is, a very respected operator in his field. His facility is in Secaucus. It doesn't make sense for him to be here. This is purely for storage purposes. And I think you have to realize that the applicant is here in good faith telling you that this is an extremely limited operation. So there's certainly an ability to get a little bit more productivity out of this industrial property. Moving on to the negative criteria, there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. This is a temporary use. This is not a permanent structure. This is not a use or activity that will hinder the redevelopment of this site if it gets to that point. This is something that can be removed at any time. So this is a use that's very suitable for underutilized parking area. I dove deeper into the use of the building and the site. There's only 21 employees in the building now. The applicant's going to be providing 42 parking spaces. So this is not a portion of the site that gets utilized for parking on a daily basis to begin with. And I think Mr. Jefferson before had a very good question that this won't turn into 50 containers, 60 containers. And I think the risk of that is mitigated by the fact that the applicant needs the space in front of the containers to maneuver the roll-off truck. So he simply wouldn't be able to stack more containers in that area. It is going to be 22 containers, and you can be very comfortable about that. The nature of the roll-off business is it's very space-intensive. This isn't a thing that can be stacked. It's easiest just to be rolled on the ground. So the 22 is going to be 22 because he needs the space for the roll-off truck. Additionally, there's no substantial detriment to the public good. As I stated before, it's over 450 feet from the surrounding residential neighborhood. It's buffered by the building. It's an isolated area on an existing commercial industrial site. There's natural and man-made buffering to this property, to the surrounding properties. And then the applicant has agreed to provide mitigation measures through a very limited time frame by which these containers can be picked up. It's a very reasonable, he said 9 to 1, 10 to 2, whatever would be the board's preference. I think that's an extreme measure of good faith to limit the traffic in and out of the site, which is going to be limited anyway. And the applicant has also indicated that fencing would be provided if the board so desired to provide safety measures to the site. So in summary, I think this application does satisfy both the positive and negative criteria with the granting of the D variance. It helps advance purposes of A and G in the municipal land use law. And in respect to those purposes of zoning, they also apply to the requested parking variance. 42 parking spaces are going to be provided. That could be granted under the C2 criteria with respect to that variance. And with that variance, hardship does not need to be demonstrated. What must be demonstrated that it relates to a specific piece of property. Here you have a existing industrial use, an existing commercial use that doesn't utilize the full range of parking availability that exists on site today. This also helps advance purposes A and G in the municipal land use law, and variance relief for that can be granted as well without substantial detriment to the zone plan and zoning ordinance.
Okay, you finished? Any questions from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Stain?
You mentioned 40 some odd parking spaces. I'm not sure you said 42.
The applicant would be providing 42 parking spaces.
I did some math, and I only come up with 32. Because I found out that the parking along the, I guess you'd call it the south side, there's the right-of-way, is not part of lot and block that this is associated with. So those parking spaces are eliminated. And I see only 32 for the whole thing, and I think we're allowing the wrong amount.
Do you have your...
This property is under the control of this whole site.
Do you want to put
It
that
may
up
be
so
under
they can
control,
see
but
it?
it's not part of it.
Well, you mentioned the lot and block number, am I correct? When you
Yes.
first, is that the same lot and block number that you have? That was mentioned by the planner, Mr.
No,
Graziano?
it doesn't, it's associated on its own as a right-of-way. It's associated on its own as a right-of-way. It's not listed as part of the lot and block.
Well, it is parking that serves this site. The applicant's proposal does not affect that portion of the site. So that's parking that is still part of this commercial complex. There are numerous block and lots as part of this proposal. However, this piece is strictly related to the lot 125, which is illustrated on the plans.
I'm sorry, I disagree, but that would be how you perceive it.
Interpret.
Well, that withstanding, even if you want to take that strip back application, which I don't personally agree with because this applicant's proposal is not affecting that land, which is essentially part of this proposal, even with the 32 spaces that you would call, the relief would still be appropriate because here you have an industrial commercial building that's only generating the need for 21 parking spaces at the moment. The largest retail occupant of this building, which is 46,000 square feet, only has 3 employees.
Now,
I understand that, but we have, our zoning calls for so many parking spaces, and at this point in time, we'd be taken away from it.
And the applicant has appropriately requested relief from the borough's standards, and that's why he's before you this evening, because he recognizes that there will be a reduction in parking with this. We've given the justifications for the reduction in parking. I've been to the site on numerous occasions. I've never seen anybody parked back there. If you look at current aerial photography, if you look at historic aerial photography, there's never any cars parked back there. So I'm very confident that given the operational characteristics of this existing building and the remote location of this parking on the site, this is a suitable endeavor for the location for which it's proposed.
but you can't assume the existing businesses are going to stay there, and if one moves out, you have no idea of what's moving in, and how many parking spots they would need.
That's correct. I wouldn't dispute that fact. However, if you look at the number of spaces that the applicant's actually getting rid of, it is a limited number of spaces.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Paparozzi?
What are the businesses currently in that building? where they have 21 employees. What are the businesses, do you know?
There's a door refinisher, there's a shirt manufacturer, there's some form of aerobic exercise enterprise, and the building owner could give a greater detail of that, but...
So they do have clients coming in and out. It's not only employees, they do have customers, clients.
On a very limited basis.
There was I don't know, we received this, there was a CO from Tri-State Fitness, that when they took over, I guess that's the company that's in there, Tri-State Fitness. So in their application, they say, with respect to membership, there will be approximately 50 members, and that each class will consist of anywhere between 5 to 10 members. So 50 members in the gym.
Yeah, those aren't classes that go on at the same time. You have 50 members, they're not going to be there all at once. If you have a class that's 5 to 10 people, then there's going to be 5 to 10 people on the site at the same time.
Oh, okay, so you know the business better than I do then. All right, then, the training could be conducted on-site, including outdoor training. So they're using the parking lot, according to this CEO, for training. Now you're adding equipment back there. And you're telling me that you can't have 50 members there at the same time. It's a guarantee. There's nobody, 30 members.
No, it's not the way that type of use operates.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, it's not a conventional gym where everybody shows up and uses the equipment. These are structured classes with, allotted time frames where there is specialized instruction
I'll check
on
it out.
site.
I'll check it out.
All right.
Anybody else from the board have any questions? Mr. Lee?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I think one of the major points of confusion, what is also missing on the plans is what the required parking spaces are on the site, what the quantity is. It sounds like maybe, I don't know if this question is for you, Mr. Graviano, but what are the uses, what are the square footages associated with the uses? Because that will help us determine how many parking spaces are actually required on the site, because we do need to define
Per business,
what the
right.
actual variance is for the number of parking spaces.
Right.
I'm curious if your architect is here that may be able to answer some of those questions.
No, I think, the deficient parking was indicated in the board planner's letter. The applicant has requested the variance. There's going to be 7 spaces less than what there is now. So I think the board has a pretty clear picture of how this is going to impact the site and impact the parking.
I would disagree. I don't see that information.
No.
I think so. 7 spaces are being taken up, and then Joe Mara actually references where I think 4 of those can be made up on the site. That would be leaving 3 spaces then.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, is
Okay, Mr. Lee?
Is Mr. Marek here?
No, he's not.
The owner's not here?
The
owner's here. Oh, you mean
He's the architect.
Oh, okay. The architect's not here. Okay. Well, maybe we could address it with the owner.
We can try.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Graniano?
No question.
Go ahead, Mr. Paparazzi.
It's a part of the negative impact of something pertaining to the public good. There's already a trucking problem on that street. Do you think by adding additional trucking, is that detrimental to the public good, or is it good for the public there, that they're suffering already with the vehicular traffic? Where does that come into play?
Well, that's a matter of opinion and interpretation. I think you heard the applicant provide that this is going to be a very limited usage of the site. Once the containers are initially stored there, he's going to use them on a very limited basis.
I understand.
However, I would like to note that the street out there is within the New Jersey standards for a two-way street with parking on both sides. It's a 50-foot right-of-way. So I wouldn't call that a narrow street. That is a street that's designed.
Like I said, they're already suffering hardship with currently the situation with the trucking there.
You can't compare this applicant to other users in the area that are higher volume and have visitors that may not be familiar with the roads. The guy that comes out here 1 or 2 times a month is going to be familiar with this roadway network and the circulation of the site. So it's not going to be a newbie. I think given the very limited nature of the business, I don't see that this is going to create any detrimental impacts to the surrounding neighborhood.
But you have no way, if cars are parked on both sides of the street, The container is how long, Mr. Valenta?
The container's 22 feet long.
And-
It'll be on the truck.
Right, and how long is the truck beyond the 22 feet?
The truck is approximately the same length. As
Well, no, the containers here.
Mm-hmm.
You have a cab.
An additional, say, 6 feet.
Yeah, a little more than that, I think. By the time the cab, I don't think any cabs are under 6 feet.
28 feet.
All right, so 28 foot. So you think there would be no detriment with a vehicle 30 feet trying to make a turn to get into there with cars parked on both sides and Mr. Getz is blowing away his mirrors?
No, I don't, because I'll tell you this. A roll-off driver
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most skilled driver operating in any condition that you'll see. These are people that are trained to be in tight spaces, to make the tight turn. And we're not even saying there's a tight turn here, but these are some of your better drivers out there.
Right.
These are people that have to drop containers off in very tight locations, whether in a residential setting between two houses,
Mhm.
or I'm very familiar with the waste management business
Right.
And waste management operations, and these are some of your better drivers out there.
Well, if you're informed with waste management, garbage men, I think garbage men drive more accurately with their garbage trucks, because I've seen them maneuver in situations that I don't know how they get through. They're backing down streets. I don't know how they're not wiping out cars, but I think they're at number one up there.
Well, they
also.
could be number one.
Okay.
All guys could be number two.
Okay. Anybody else from the board have any questions? Mr. Lee?
I apologize. One last question. So in your testimony, it said that there's 42 spaces that'll be provided. The plan said that there's 56. Can you address that discrepancy?
Mr. Lee, talking to the microphone.
Oh, I apologize. Just the question was, the testimony was 42 parking spaces
Right.
to be proposed.
Yeah, that's right.
But the plans indicate 56. Just wanted to clarify which number that is, or whether that was excluding the parking spaces in the right-of-way, or the reasoning for that.
That was the number excluding the one from the parcel that was discussed before. That, I believe, that was the count from Mr. Paparozzi's letter.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Stain?
Yes, looking at your drawing again, or your sketch, this portion right down in here, I'm looking at it now. Your driveway getting into there isn't even on your property.
The trucks can utilize the access that's solely on the applicant's property. You're referring to the...
Where there's lot 1.10, that piece of property, we have paving going across it. It's not .125, it's a different piece of property.
You're referencing the north driveway. The south driveway is fully within the ownership of the property owner. This is an existing drive. The one you're referring to is an existing driveway. It's been in use for numerous years, but there is an option to fully have access through the property owner's ownership.
I have Mr. Valenti. These containers, they're basically from construction. Is that what they're mostly from? Construction? Okay. Now, you're at a site where they're doing construction and they fill these containers.
Yes.
Then you're bringing it over here.
No. I take it to a transfer station. I dump them. I'm not bringing any container in use to your site. Any containers that I use regularly, they stay in Seacoast. Okay, so just to go through how it works. So say a container's on site, I pick it up. I have to take it right to a transfer station, dump it. I cannot store it full on any property. Okay, it has to go and get dumped immediately. So the containers that are in use, they would get stored no matter what. Once they're empty, in Sea Caucus on my property there. These containers that are here are not going to any construction site. These are not in use, these containers.
There's going to be nothing in there.
No, there will never be anything in there.
So
So they actually go to the site, contractor calls up, says, I need a container, picks it up and brings it in.
Yeah, but any of the containers that would be on the Lodi site, they will not be going off-site to, unless I absolutely need something, if one of my other reuse containers are in need of repair. But the containers on this site will not be going for use. They will be empty with nothing in them.
I think you almost have to refer to these containers as spare parts. These are, this is, no, I think we need everybody to understand this a little bit better. These are containers that are, one, not in use. They're for under emergency conditions where containers break from time to time. They require welding, they require maintenance, they require, repairs, whether it's to the wheels or other, to the door of the container. It does not happen that frequently because these are made of extreme durable metal, but it does arise once in a while. So these are containers that the applicant will bring to the site after they are cleaned. These will be fully cleaned containers that are standing there and being stored on the site. Additionally, the property owner doesn't want the applicant bringing containers with trash on the site or having dirty containers on the site. So not only do you have the borough that's an enforcement mechanism here, you have the property owner itself who has numerous other tenants that are going to not want trash on the site. So this is purely a spare container storage area for clean containers that are not in circulation, that will not have construction debris in them.
What was the compactor for?
That's in case one of the compactors that he has at his other area breaks down, he comes and picks it up.
I thought you were talking about one over here.
So the compactor, I have about, I think, 3 of them that would be coming over here. As I mentioned before, they're older compactors. They're about 25 years old. I have bought new compactors, over the years. So the new ones are in use. These are purely a spare. If anything happens to the other ones and I need to put one in use, 2 in use, then they'll go into use while the other ones are being repaired.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board members?
Yes.
Mr. Paparozzi?
You mentioned repairs, welding. Will any of the repairs being happening on the Lodi property?
No, so I use a welder that's right across the street from me in Secaucus.
Okay.
I take all my equipment to him. That's really the only repairs that would be needed on any of this equipment. Is welding primarily. So.
Okay, Mr. Bernice?
There's no such thing as a clean, empty container. I've been in construction 38 years. Containers on every job site. They're not clean. The stench is horrible. When we get them new, they stink. One more thing. I'm trying to think of a positive that this is going to bring to our town. I got a bunch of negatives, but I can't come up with a positive. The rain runoff, the residents complaining, there's going to be standing water in these containers, which will be a breeding ground for numerous, God only knows what. Of course, they're filthy dirty, these containers. Well, it's impossible to have a clean container, and it's the idea of a used part. What did you say? Used parts?
No,
they're empty, dirty, filthy, stinking containers. Give me a positive. Why should we have this in our town?
Sure, I'll give you a positive. Just if I can clarify a few of those points. One of the residents asked about standing water, and I mentioned that I can block up the front of the containers so that any water...
Yeah, it'll run into the river. It's going to run into the river.
But it's water that's going onto the ground.
Yeah, it's clean. That's how your containers are going to get cleaned, by rainwater.
These containers are sitting on another site currently, not in use, okay? So they've been cleaned. They put on another site currently.
There's no such thing as a clean, empty container. I disagree with you. There's no such thing as a clean, empty garbage container.
These have been in use for a very long time. They're not like they're just coming from a site, the construction site. They are not.
What do you take? You take them to the transfer station and then you bring them to the site.
Not these containers. I do have containers that just came from the.
What do you need them for? What do you need them for? What are they used for?
In case he gets busy.
I built up spare equipment over the years.
Well, why should we store them in our town? What's the positive?
Well, I think
For the town of Lodi. I can't come up with
It's a
something.
deposit for utilizing empty space that's not being utilized right now.
For garbage containers.
But there's no garbage in them,
Yeah.
there's no residuals in them, it's purely.
They're the most disgusting things you could ever imagine. We throw everything from construction to food, everything goes in these containers, and there's no way to clean them. It's impossible. I know it's your business, but it was my business too for almost 40 years, using these containers.
Okay, all right, Mr. Benitez?
I don't see a positive.
Construction for 50 years.
Wow. You still in construction? All right, any other questions from the board? If not, I'd like to open it up to the public. Anybody has questions they would like to ask the planner, just what he spoke about? Any remarks, anything we'll hold off to later? Any questions for the planner? Mr. Guariano, any questions? Okay, no questions from the public. We'll close the public.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You did an excellent job. Okay, continue.
We have one more witness for you, the property owner, Nicholas
Yes.
Cangeloni.
Okay, great. Cangelosi, right. If he come up, be sworn in.
So do you
Nick
swear testimony about to give the whole truth?
Cangelosi,
Wait 1 second. He's spelling his last name. Wait, first let our attorney
Swear
swear.
that the testimony about to give is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I will.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to spell your last name?
Spell your last name.
Yeah, Nick Cangelosi, last name Cangialosi.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Cangelosi.
Losi.
Okay.
I own the property since 1976.
Oh, really?
I'm
1976?
there for a long time.
Okay, continue.
Sorry, go ahead.
I want to say also, too, that Mike happened to be my son-in-law, and everything that he says, I will back it up to the property. Containers
Okay.
are clean, I will make sure they're all clean, and
Okay.
I don't want to be in violation after 44 years owning the property.
Okay. Well, if you're going to keep it so clean, well, why is the property a mess now? You have, when you enter it, first of all, there's no arrows there saying cars could go two directions, and I don't think you could fit cars going two directions. Secondly, wait, let me finish. When you go down, you have a stack of skids there. They look like they've been there 50 years. As you go further down the property, there's a fence that's filled with dirt and it's collapsing and everything. And if that's not a mess, in the very back from the river to your pavement, you have weeds 4 or 5 feet high. So tell me how you maintain your property.
Well, the south side of the property, the driveway has an arrow, both in and out. Going in.
Well, we're not talking the south, we're talking the north side, where his containers would be. When you first come in Del Glen Avenue, as you come down, you see the exercise door there, and you see all the skids on your left side.
Yeah.
How long have they been there?
The skids on the
Yeah.
left-hand side?
Yeah.
I mean, everything that's there, the tenants, it's all fenced in. The containers there now.
And your fence is collapsing. You see your fence, as you go towards the back, they have dirt piled up 4 feet high against it. It's like this on an angle.
No, that's
No?
the property borderline with Ventana truck, and they were dumping dirt and they put it over the fence.
Yeah,
They
it's
were
a mess.
supposed to remove it. Yeah, that's they're in violation coming over the property.
Oh, it looks like a mess. And then in the back, your weeds are 5 feet high. How come I have to cut my grass, otherwise I get summons?
I cut the weeds twice a year.
Oh, only twice a year? Come on, okay.
Every time the fire marshal says to go and cut it, I go
Oh,
cut
you
it.
have to be told. Don't you think it's a little courtesy for the
Plus,
neighborhood?
That's why by putting the containers there, that won't grow.
No, I'm talking past the macadam. Past from where the macadam ends to the river.
Right, yeah.
That's a mess. No? Or did I see not right?
We just,
Okay.
yeah, we just cut the weeds at not
Twice a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice a year.
I wish that, and if I could only cut my grass 2 times a year, I wouldn't mind that either. But the town will come and they find me. You know, it's hidden in the back, and you wonder what you could get away with. So you wonder what you could get away with these dumpsters. There's canisters when there. If you could get away with that, hey, then we could get away with anything, no? We just throw them there. We don't have to put them in line. We don't have to do anything because nobody's going to see it. You don't see it. It's a buffer. You have a buffer with the building. Okay. I'm not picking on it, believe me. But I was just surprised at the condition of the property, knowing that you have people, residents living in the neighborhood. It's not that you're in a commercial area. You're in a residential. You wouldn't want to see that, of course, from your house. You live on Del Glen Avenue? You live in Del Glen Avenue? No.
Well, you know.
I know. Do we have any questions from the board for Mr. Gangelosi?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Beagle?
Where does the runoff rainwater from that area go to?
The parking lot is the natural drainage system. On the end of the parking lot?
It's porous.
So
that
there's no
whole.
storm sewers whatsoever in that parking lot?
Nothing runs through the sewer.
That's an old
There's no sewer lines there. Not bad.
You have over 100 feet of porous soil, and that's probably it's absorbed there before it gets to the river.
Not enough.
No. Okay, Mr. Lee, our engineer, have any questions?
Yes, I do. Just curious if you know what the square footage of the entire building is. Actually, let me take that back. Before I start, do you own both lot 1.25 as well as lot 1.07?
Yes.
Okay, so they're under common ownership. For the building on lot 1.25, do you know what the overall square footage is for the building?
Total square footage between the first floor and second floor is 104,000 square feet.
104,000 square feet. And what types of uses do you have?
Me too.
In the buildings? What types of uses do you have in the buildings? Like warehousing? I know your planner.
Warehousing, manufacturing.
You said warehouse and light manufacturing. I know there's some type of a boot camp, gym type facility.
The gym, yeah. The gym.
Do you know what the square footages are that are associated with those different uses?
The gym?
All of them. Essentially, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Could you get back to the mic? Just speak into the microphone, and Mr. Lee, if you could speak up.
What I'm trying to determine here is, there's several variances, obviously, that are being requested for approval.
Is that microphone on?
Yeah.
Okay. You hear it, okay? Yeah. Okay, good.
So there's several variances that are being sought. One of which is a parking variance, which I don't really feel that the board may have heard enough information on in terms of what the true number of, deficient parking spaces there are. So we don't really have an understanding. I know we've heard some testimony from the planner and some testimony from the applicant in terms of the types of uses that are there and what are being proposed. We have nothing on the plans. I haven't seen any information that indicates exactly what the square footage is and the different types of uses in the building to confirm truly what the number of parking spaces are that are required for the site.
Right.
We know how many are proposed and exist right now, but we don't know how many are needed for the site to really,
right.
for the board to really be able to make a decision on, how much of a variance are you permitting or
right.
contemplating at this point. So that's what I'm trying to develop at this point.
Right.
Just so you understand the gravity of that, at least for that one variance.
Well, I don't think there's any striping either. Is there stripe? Did you see any striping?
There is some striping, but without the architect that designed the plans here, I can't really question.
Right.
I do have several questions regarding that. Just for your edification, some of the concerns that I have with the circulation on the site. So with both lots being owned, by the same person.
Right.
There really isn't any concerns with, whether they access from the north or south driveway,
Mm-hmm.
because they own both of them.
Right.
It does, they would have to pass into the public right away if they're coming in through the south driveway to get back to the backyard. That's really not an issue, but there is an issue if they were to circulate to the north side. What they're proposing on the north side is to move the fire lane striping up against the building where it used to be up against the property line.
Mm-hmm.
By doing that, they're doing that so that they can provide parking up against the property line on that side.
Right.
Now, what happens is with the fire lane striping and then the parking on the other side, you've really reduced that lane to maybe about 15 or 16 feet.
Right.
In doing so, that really requires that driveway be a one-way driveway.
Mm-hmm.
But that, when you couple that with looking at the, it's at about the northeast corner, it's where lot 1.10 is.
Okay.
If you take a look at that, the driveway actually encroaches into lot 1.10.
Does.
So if this were to be a one-way driveway, there's really no way to get in, or vice versa, there's no way to get out.
Right.
So there's several issues with the design and layout, and just concerns that really do, they are impacted by what's being proposed by the applicant right now.
Right.
So it's circulation issues, it's parking issues. I don't think that the board has really heard enough in terms of what the true number of users are. I know we've heard some numbers in terms of employees on
Right.
the site, but we haven't heard what the associated uses. How are they businesses open to the public? If they are open to the public, then is it a retail type use? We have to apply the parking ratio appropriate for that. So those are just some of the concerns of what I was trying to establish, and I apologize, Mr. Cangiuloso, if you don't have that information. That's kind of what I'm looking for, so that we can establish truly, what the accurate numbers are.
What do you think? Vehicles, the truck carrying the dumpster could make the turn and come down between the building on the south side? Is it wide enough?
I have to imagine so.
Okay.
I was on the site and I did see there's trailers there on the loading docks. So
Okay.
large vehicles have to be able to make it back there one way or another. Whether or not they have to encroach over the parking spaces and whatnot, that's kind of some of the information that I don't know.
Right. Well, you can't just encroach on somebody else's property.
But
Yeah.
I'd have to imagine actually the tractor trailer, the ones that are there right now are probably longer than the trucks that are being used for the roll-offs.
Right.
So I would think that they can get on the site.
Right. But they would definitely need arrows or saying one way.
I actually was almost hit on my coming out of the driveway
Really?
by a car that was zipping into oncoming traffic for me. And I would highly recommend that striping. I was confused when I got to the site as to
Yes.
which way, if it's one way or
Right.
two way.
Right.
So I actually had to make a U-turn and come back around because I didn't want to go in the wrong way. It wasn't really clear because both sides have arrows pointing in
Mhm.
for the business, for the CrossFit
Right.
boot camp business.
And then also, if you're halfway out of the building and all of a sudden you have a truck coming in, now you have to back up all the way down and you're creating more chaos than you really need to deal with. All right, any other questions from board members? Mr. Barbarozzi?
Yeah,
Mr. Lee, you finished? Did you finish?
Well, I mean, I don't know if the owner can answer what, some of those questions as far as
yeah.
the uses, the square footage associated with them,
Yeah.
The encroachment onto the neighboring property, whether the plans are to make any of the driveways one way or to keep them two way.
Right.
One of the comments from the planner's report is that access to the site, especially from the north driveway,
Right.
trying to turn out of there is extremely difficult if you're trying to make a right, just because of how tight the road is.
Right, right.
Just if we could hear some testimony as to to answer or address some of those concerns, I think that may shed some light for the board and help you to make a decision.
Mr. Cangelosi, you want to address any of the questions?
Any modification need to put down between the exit and the engine?
Yeah. With that, we could
We
put in a
want to do it.
resolution that we would want such and such.
Mr. Maybe I could help.
Okay.
Speed this up. Mr. Cangelosi, how many tenants are currently in the building?
8.
There's 8 tenants? And can you describe for me the types of businesses that these tenants run?
Going away from warehousing to printing, they print shirts.
Right.
All the tenants have been there more than...
Isn't there a seafood place there or something like that, or no?
Long time.
Isn't there some kind of seafood there, too? Didn't I see
Yeah,
something?
they make lobster tanks.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what they call lobster house.
Oh, okay, right.
And he's there over 10 years as a tenant.
Right.
They used to have at Julian Food. He moved out. and he used to have 50-foot trucks coming in there on a daily basis.
Right.
So all that
Wow.
traffic used to be at Del Glen Avenue, now it's obsolete. So all that traffic was eliminated. The people that took over that space, that Julian Phil was there, there's a warehouse for computers.
Right.
And he only has 2 employees there,
Right.
He gets a truck, once a week.
Well, somebody now is taking off Mr. Getz mirrors and everything as they go by. So we know that. Okay. Any other questions from board members? Mr. Paparozzi?
Question on that north parking lot. They're saying the engineer said that we're encroaching on the lot 1.10.
Right.
Because his fence is way back off his property line. If that owner of that property chose to put that fence along that property line,
You can't use it.
then what happens there?
Mr. Lee?
The owner could move his fence, right?
Yeah, he certainly could.
He certainly could.
If there's no easement or agreement between the 2 property owners, he could move that fence and close that off. It would essentially, it looks like it would leave about 13.7 feet, which might be enough for one-way traffic. Really, I think the borough's ordinance requires, 18 feet for one way.
Okay.
And there's a ramp in the way.
So they'd be like 5 feet shy? 5 feet shy?
They would be 5 feet shy.
Yeah.
But it also depends on, I know there's a grade drop off there, so.
Right.
If they wanted to close that fence off, if they wanted to make changes to the grades there, then you'd need to, he would need to construct a retaining wall, guide rail fencing, which would eat up into more of that space.
Sure.
It's hypothetical, but it is
Right.
a possibility.
It is
Sure.
a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Any other?
They're talking about redevelopment in that area.
Mr. Jefferson?
Mr. Wellington, what is your time frame?
Time frame?
Yeah.
When I'm looking to move on?
Yeah.
If there was an approval, again, it's a hard.
So you're probably bursting at the seams now, correct? In terms of where you are.
Like I said, the property that the containers are on right now, which is not my property in Seacole, because it's on the property.
Yes. Yeah, which is going to be developed.
And walk in there.
Okay.
So if I was approved, they would come from that site to the Lodi.
Okay. Now, have they give you an idea of when they're ready to get started?
They've been pretty flexible with me, but.
To this point?
In essence, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? If not, open it up. One more question, Mr. Paparozzi?
Currently has 8 tenants. They all have certificates of occupancy.
they'll have CEO,
All current?
right, yeah.
Okay.
Come in like this, the trucks.
Okay, we'll open up to the public. Any questions to ask? Right, Mr. Cangelosi, pertaining to what he spoke about. Okay. Yeah, you need to come up to the mic or bring the mic there so we could hear you. And just state your name again, because
Raymond Getz.
Raymond Getz.
My question is, isn't it true that every day there's an 18-wheeler from SD Trucking that parks on Del Glen Avenue in a no parking zone, and a forklift comes out from the factory to unload every day?
Every day.
Every day. All right, 4 times a week.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
Not aware of it?
Every day in a no parking zone.
That's for the printer, that guy that does the printing.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a loading dock.
He doesn't have a loading dock, so they park the 18-wheeler in a no parking zone, come out with a forklift on the street with no plates on it, and unload the truck 4 times a week.
So why don't you call the zoning department, have them, well, when it's there, take a picture of it, or call the zoning department and say, look.
Better yet, I call the cops and they get tickets.
Oh, okay.
But it continues to happen.
Well, I'd much rather pay the ticket. If you call the zoning department, they'll hit them with a fine. And each time you call them, the fine increases till it's worth it not to park there. Or get a smaller trailer, bring it in, right? Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Come on up, Mrs. Patterson.
Just a question, in hearing from my other neighbor about the trucks that are there, and now knowing that this is your son-in-law, what accountability will you have to make sure that things are done properly if you are not doing it with the company that you have right now?
And if he doesn't follow through in the commitment that he makes, control that.
Well, he would be more lenient with his son-in-law.
I'll get fined on the
Right,
back.
right.
So, he better follow.
But if it doesn't,
I'll be responsible. I have 44 years I'm there. I was a young man when I first bought the property.
Still look like a young man.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the public? Mr. Patterson, did you want to? No, you're good? Come on up.
I got pictures of the,
Wait, but we can't get into that now. Just
You don't want this?
No.
Not yet. No, because that's one of the problems that we had.
Yeah, but we didn't get there yet.
And now we're going to make it worse.
Yeah, but we didn't get there yet. Just if you could ask any questions that he spoke about. Yeah, no. Okay. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? If not, we'll close it for the public. Okay, Mr. Cangelosi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all we have for the
Okay.
applicant tonight. Thank you.
You want to give a summary before? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay, if anyone from the public has any questions, now's the time. You could come up and ask. Any questions you might have, concerns, you could. Okay. Does anyone from the public have anything to say for or against the application? Mrs. Patterson?
So in sitting here, I was reviewing Valenta Cardi's website, and I do see that they do haul garbage, they haul recycling. So I know he said that there is, from properties that they demo.
Construction,
but the website,
right.
Yes, construction. But there's also garbage in there. I'm concerned because of the runoff. I'm concerned of the containers with water standing and mosquitoes. You know, he was a planner.
The planner,
He
yes.
said, you know, it's not really a nuisance, but it is. Our block is already packed. On any given day, you can't drive down it. My neighbor's car has been hit. My car's almost been hit multiple times. It's times I'll leave my car on the street. For an hour, I look out, there's a truck coming down the street or turning out of somewhere, almost hitting it. It's ridiculous. People fly up and down the street. When I bought my house, the intention wasn't to have garbage containers being stored. Otherwise, I would not have bought the property. You know, and I have a master's degree in public administration. The government should be creating public value. I do not see the public value in these containers being stored there.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Do you have any questions for her?
You have a question? Anyone else wish to speak to or against the property? Okay, then we'll close it to the public.
Didn't that gentleman have pictures?
Oh, did you want to show your pictures? He shows it to us. Shows it all to us.
Yeah, we should swear him in.
Yeah.
Swear him in.
We would need to swear you in.
Mrs. Patterson, you
So
swear
raise your
to
right.
Mrs. Patterson, you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth? You did? Mrs. Patterson? Yes. Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth? Yes, I do.
Okay.
Want to see the picture?
Sure.
That's my house, that's my driveway. This truck is down.
And that's parked there, the tractor trailer?
And they don't move.
And they're not
Even
even
if you
close.
go, please.
And they're not even close to the curb. He's pretty far away from the curb, too.
No, but that's blocking the driveway.
Sure.
See?
Yeah, you can't. How can you back out?
Show him.
Okay.
I'm going to object to the production and introduction of this as a...
Yeah, well, we know it's not anything to do with Mr. Valenta. He's just telling us what's going on with the neighborhood, basically, as far as the building goes now.
If there was any attempt to make this part of the record, I just object based upon the record.
Okay.
So noted. See,
Yeah.
I would like to just take a look at it.
this is a month. people park on both sides of the street.
Right.
Once the trucks get on that street, no one can move.
Right.
They have to make a turn. They knock out the roof of that building there.
Right.
There'll be a big problem with this company.
That's a tractor trailer. We don't have tractor trailers.
Yeah, when you bring garbage to the town, which is worse than the tractor trailer.
Well, no, it's going to be empty. It's going to be.
More problem to the town.
I would like to just ask one question.
Sure. Well, wait, he would like to ask you a question.
How do you know that Wellington Garden will bring garbage to the town?
Because I already researched it. You deal with garbage.
Just because of the fact that...
Demolition come with garbage and everything.
Have you seen the containers that are going to, or proposed to be stored on the property?
I never see it, but I see what they show there. This picture here. I think that's going to be what?
Is there garbage in the containers that are
Not now. But it will.
And how
It will be when you...
What are you basing your testimony on that there will be garbage in those containers? What are you basing your statement that there will be garbage containers that are brought over to the Lodi property? What are you basing that on?
As compact as you can.
He's saying that all it's impossible. He's saying that they're going to bring empty containers to the town. Do you think they're going to believe that? No.
Well, you have to go on.
If they bring it on
site,
it's going to be dirty.
2 weeks.
It's going to, if it rains, it's going to run up to the river. It's going to contaminate everything.
And last question, you've never seen it.
I never see it, but
if this touched the water that was in it.
Okay, anybody else in the audience have any questions? If not, we'll close it to the audience. No questions? Okay, and board satisfied? Yeah, summary. Do you want to give your summary?
Just very briefly, because
Okay.
you guys have heard a lot of testimony tonight and a lot of statements from the public. Just in closing, you've heard a lot of concerns from the public with regards to how the property has been used previously, and as the applicant, we just want to, again, do our best to try to distinguish ourselves from that in terms of not only the use, but making sure that the property is not harmed in any way other than how than it already is in its current condition. These 22 containers will be clean. They have not been used for several months now. There has nothing in those containers, and Wellington Carding will make every effort to not disrupt the public and will be willing to make only limited trips to and from the property every month based upon whatever the board finds appropriate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lee, you want to surmise? Our engineer?
I just wanted to make sure it's on. I mean, I think you've heard my opinions on the application. I don't know that you've heard enough to be able to make a definitive decision, at least in terms of the parking variance. But really, that decision really remains, with each of the board members to decide whether or not they've heard enough information. I don't know that we've heard really a lot about the use, other than, well, the planner, excuse me, I take that back. The planner did provide testimony regarding the use variance that's proposed. Just a reminder that it is within the redevelopment area, and that there are, it is definitely a unique application, I would say.
Okay, did you want to give any remarks to Mr. Paparozzi's report?
In terms of Mr. Paparossa's report,
That's our plan.
he did. We actually, I did speak with him on the phone the other day, and in terms of his report, he does indicate that there are, there's the use variance as well as the parking variance, which we've discussed at length. Some of the issues that he did bring up were some that I had already echoed, but regarding the number of parking spaces that are proposed. He indicates in his report as 42. I actually doing my own calculations, I believe I came up with the number of 45 on site.
Okay.
And 15 spaces within the right-of-way. So really those spaces, just a reminder, those 15 spaces in the right-of-way, although they may be used currently by the applicant, the borough could come in at any time and decide to pave that road, and they'd lose that parking space. So they really shouldn't consider that in their application.
Okay.
Some of the other comments from Mr. Paparozzi's report were addressed. How often are the containers moved? We've heard about 1 to 2 times per month. I echoed his comment regarding trucks exiting to the north of the lot, that they can't actually, not only do they have difficulty exiting the site, they would have to cross through lot 1.10 in order to leave the site. And I apologize, there was one other comment that there may be a requirement for a DP permit for the storage of containers. I believe a portion of the site is within the flood hazard area, so there may be some form of permitting that will be required. So if that, depending on how the board chooses to vote on the application, that would be something that would need to be addressed.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? If not, a motion to approve or to deny.
Motion to deny.
Mr. Stain? Motion to deny. Second? Mr. Beagle? A motion to deny, Mr. Beagle, or approve?
Seems like the people who live there don't want you there. I don't want dirty dumpsters that could toxify the river right behind where you want to put these dumpsters. I have to say.
The residents of Del Glen have had a traffic problem for a long time, and as few vehicles you're talking about coming through still adds to the problem of the residents in the area. The parking is reduced from, I think you mentioned 56, and it's reduced to 32. Now that's way out of line. I don't see a positive for the town. And on the north side, we have a piece of property that once a fence is put up, there's no more driveway. South side, we have a right-of-way that doesn't belong to the property. I don't see any positive for the town, period. So I vote to deny.
Tom? Mr. Beagle? Yeah, but just roll.
I vote to deny.
Deny. Mr. Jefferson?
I'm struggling with this one a bit. I think you're very credible. I think you presented your case well tonight. I agree with my colleagues and some of the concerns they've had. I think if we had more opportunity maybe to hear from your architect and get some more idea about the parking situation, some of the issues that were raised, I feel a little more comfortable about that. Unfortunately, your back's against the wall. Personally, I don't have an issue with it. I mean, I understand what your neighbors are feeling. I thought if it were a situation where you were in and out every day, it would bother me. If I thought that there was some subterfuge going on and you were attempting to try to hide things in there, I would be against it. So I'm voting to support you. Unfortunately, the tide is as it is, and I wish there was more that can be done. I am concerned about the runoff, but you expressed about how you'd mitigate that, and so I'm kind of torn on this one, which I'm not usually am. I'm usually pretty clear, but I would vote to support this.
That's for it?
Yeah,
You're for it?
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Okay, so a couple of points that I have is that, as was mentioned tonight, that the characteristic of this area is in commercial and industrial use. That being said, as a board member, we're quasi-judicial. We have to keep in mind that the, bias, our passion, has to be left out of these things, and we have to hear the facts. As per Mr. Paparozzi, in the comments stated there, one of the concerns was parking. I see that 6 parking spaces are going to be taken from here. Yes, I feel that we might need a little bit more clarification, and maybe Mr. Paparozzi could get that for us, but moving forward, or you could discuss it. I'm, not sure where to go with that. Especially with the north side of this entrance, might have to be looked into a little bit more carefully. But I'm just going through my notes, so I apologize. Again, it's existing industrial use as per board ordinance 2/2010. It is a redevelopment area, so that has to be kept in mind. For the residents on this street, it's been this way for a very, very long time. When Mr. Cangelosi bought this building in 1976, it was already this way. So it's not anything new in that area. It's mixed use. It's residential, and you have industrial right across the street. And it's just the way it is. And is it right? Maybe not. But whoever purchased there, it was this way. It's nothing new. Prior traffic, truck flow, these trucks coming in and out or down the street, I'm very familiar with it because I take it down to, I cut down that way sometimes to get on Route 46, so I know what, the area that you're referring to. But again, these type of issues that were brought up today have to be taken up with the zoning official or the police department. Vehicles getting hit, tractor trailers, etc. This really should be all taken, all you guys, all of you in the audience, I suggest you go to the next board meeting where your mayor and council sit. That's where these discussions need to be had. But a lot of those meetings are empty. Yeah. And I know that some do, but these rooms should be filled. Board, meetings should be filled with these type of questions, not only from you guys on Del Glen, but there's a lot of issues that go on in Lodi. And if we don't bring them up at those meetings where they do have the power to handle these things or make decisions, like converting that into a one-way or not, that would be brought up at those type of meetings. We could only address certain things here and what's presented to us and per variances. Let's see. Mr. Malta, I understand clearly, and it was repeated a couple times, and I asked you, this site is not your active location. It's going to be strictly storage. I understand that. So, that being said, I'm in favor of it. And that's that. Thank you. Oh, one more. I'm sorry. I know, I forgot something. Mr. Cangelosi, Frank brought it up earlier. I was there, and one thing I will make sure of, you need to clean that property up. I gave you this, but now you clean it up because it's messy. And it has nothing to do with this application, but there's chain link fence around the property that's falling apart. Half of it's in towards the river, half of it's in the property. Okay? Weeds all over. Again, why do we have to cut our grass? It grows 6 inches. I got a violation on my door, So you need to clean up that property, again, it's not my say I'm not an official, zoning, official or building or property maintenance, but I'll make sure I discuss it with them. And they have to follow through. Because if I'm giving this, then I want that property cleaned up for these guys sitting out there. Because they're me. I'm here to speak for them. They have the traffic flow, but it's also industrial, but it needs to be kept up. And it needs to look prettier. Because I'm very big, on aesthetics. Very big on it. So that's one thing that building needs to be cleaned up. Please.
I will help them out with that if need be. I'll cut the grass for them.
No. Yeah. I appreciate that, but you have to understand, because even though it's in that industrial, there's a lot of industrial areas that just look really nice, Landscaping is kept up. It just makes it look better. So this is something that we have to do on Del Glen. Not only, it's mostly for that area, for those residents that live there. So, you might not live there. It's your commercial building, but they have to live there. So make it look cleaner. And like I said, you don't want to start getting fined, so make sure you keep up with it. Thank you. Bernice?
No.
No.
No, I would just like to say, Mr. Valenta, you gave a good explanation of what you want to do, and I just feel it's not for that area. You know, they're saying it's a commercial industrial area, but you know what? 10 years from now, it might be the property goes up for sale, and I come along and I want to put condos there. That would be a great thing. I don't want to go backwards. I feel I need to go forward, and especially the taxes that I pay in Lodi are not minor. It's expensive to live in Lodi. I understand what the residents are going through, and I feel they really don't. They have headaches now, which they have a fight in their hand, and the mayor and council, I hope, are going to help them out. Your planner gave an excellent explanation of the positives and the negatives, but I feel it's more negative. Maybe the other part of town, like by Gregg Street, where there's no residents in the area, it'd be a perfect spot for you, areas like that. Not in the areas where they're dealing with all this traffic now. They have children. I wouldn't want to worry about my daughter or son with a bicycle on the street if she should rear off, go into the street a little. They had this when they purchased the home, I'm sure, but they have to have this extra lookout for what's going on there. It's still one side of the street is residential, and they should be treated duly like residents should. And with that in mind, I have to deny. So the way it stands as of now, we have 2 yes and 5 no's. I'm sorry, but we have to deny the application. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, we have any old business we need to discuss? Mr. Bernice, any old business or new business we need to discuss? No?
I have to bring up something.
Okay, Mr. Stain?
On Mazda, over on Route 46.
Right, okay.
I have been there several times now with the new property. They're overused. I reported it to the Borough Council Tuesday.
Right.
Mr. Melfi was supposed to be there, but he had to rush out, so I gave it to the council. It is totally striped wrong. They have 110 cars parked on there. And I believe, if I remember right, it's supposed to be like 70, some in that area. There's no drive around. You know, we have the 10-foot right-of-way around.
Right.
None whatsoever, only in the front. There was 2 spaces open today, and I went up there, and right behind me pulls the tractor trailer with 2 cars to put it in the spaces that were empty.
You didn't flash any badge, did you?
No, I didn't flash any badges. So I just want to bring it up to you people to let you know that even at that, they're just taking totally advantage, and nothing has been done about the overuse of their property,
Sure.
Which has over 100 cars more than they need. I don't know if there's anything we could do by sending them a letter or send them something that we disapprove of what's happening. I don't know.
Well, you addressed it with the mayor and council. If they don't do anything, say within 30 days, our next meeting, we'll send an official, or have Mr. Paparocci address it and say, and we approved. They have to abide by what we approved.
In the resolution.
In the resolution, right.
Didn't he bring this up last time we were
brought this
here?
up
No.
before,
Frank?
No, this is the first time Dominic's bringing
No,
this
not
up.
Dominic. Paparazzi?
Somebody said
Yeah,
that. Must have that.
Gary
Gary
had
did.
said they made changes, and he went
Yeah.
out there and made them make changes, but apparently
do it,
they
is that what
changed
you-
whatever they wanted to change to.
And they were going to restripe behind the building
Right.
to accommodate more. So that all needs to be addressed, that they need to be taken care of.
Well, then, whoever we pay, as I usually say, to enforce these things should be moving on.
Yes. So if it's not done within 30 days, our next meeting, we need to notify Mr. Melfi and Mr. Paparotti that we're not satisfied with what's going on before. Well, did we approve the resolution already? We did.
On that condition, though,
So-
they're corrected, though.
So they have to address everything that in the resolution we approved.
One other thing, I passed Content Avenue tonight.
Okay.
There has to be 30 buses parked in there, no striping yet.
Well, that's supposed to be phase 2, which I don't know whatever happened to phase 2.
I think there's more than 30 buses there.
Yeah, more than 30 buses. Any other questions from the board?
I'd just like to say something.
Okay, Mr. Nacito?
Bob Wyatt now.
They took that off. Go ahead, Mr.
Did
Nacito.
anybody call Shrieks and tell them to
Yes.
I just want to say it's been a pleasure serving on this board. At this time, I am resigning because Saturday I am moving to Colorado.
Best of luck.
Good for you.
Yeah, so I just want to say, I appreciated everything and you guys dealing with me, and I enjoyed it. And
What part of Colorado?
Colorado Springs.
Oh, I got a buddy in Boulder.
In Boulder?
So we'll exchange numbers. When I come out to visit him, I'll come and see him.
Okay.
Well, send us a postcard so we could come and see you. Thank you for being on the board. It's been a pleasure. It's been
Yeah,
fun.
I'll have the same phone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Jefferson, second by Mr. Stain. The meeting's adjourned.